You know, I've been speaking all over the world for the past 25 years, and every time I open it up for a Q&A, no matter where I am, Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, Bulgaria, the United Kingdom, one of the top 3 questions all the time, where is Jimmy Hoffa buried? One of the biggest mysteries, I think, in the world. So let's watch the movie Hoffa and see if we can find out.
And jubilant Jimmy Hoffa sweeps in as new president of the Teamsters.
Only Jimmy Hoffa can rejoice at his continued good luck. Honest union members and the general public can only regard it as a tragedy.
I stand here today before you as I stood in front of that court and took an oath that I was not then guilty, nor am I guilty now.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. And today is Mob Movie Monday, absolutely a follower favorite of mine. We've done so many movies over the past. We're never going to run out of movies, that's for sure, but I know you all enjoy it, so here we go. Today we're going to talk about Hoffa, the 1992 release. Jack Nicholson, Danny DeVito starred in it. Danny DeVito actually directed it. It was a good film. Anything Jack Nicholson does is great. Before we do get into that, I got to tell you, everything around Hoffa is so interesting. I have been speaking all around the world for the past 25 years. And when I say all around the world, Australia, Singapore, Bulgaria, United Kingdom, you name it, I've been there. And whenever I open it up for questions, do a Q&A, I'm not kidding. One of the top 3 questions all the time, no matter where I am, is where was Jimmy Hoffa buried? It's like people all over the world know about this guy. They know about the case, at least some information on it. And it's still one of the most intriguing murder cases, murder mystery cases coming out of the United States, without a doubt. I got to tell you my, story for Hoffa, and I think that I've talked about this in a prior video, but I think it's appropriate today because we're going to review the movie. I have some information about Hoffa. You got to understand this. The word is on the street. Now, obviously, he disappeared in 1975. I just became a made guy in 1975. I did not know Jimmy Hoffa, but I knew from people that were knowledgeable of the Hoffa incident. A couple of things I can tell you. The order to take him out definitely came out of New York, 100%. And I know the person that gave the order. And it came out of the Genovese family, 100%. You can bet on that. I want to comment at this point. The movie The Irishman was a good movie. Scorsese, everything he does is good. We had great actors, great cast, no doubt about it. But Frank Sheeran did not kill Jimmy Hoffa. Nor did he kill Joey Gallo. Frank Sheeran sold a book, he wrote a book, he said he was responsible for the murder. It's not true. It's been debunked, not only from what I'm telling you, but every investigation that's credible, that investigated that case, debunked the whole Frank Sheeran involvement. It just wasn't true. Might have been a good movie, just wasn't true. Didn't happen that way. I'm gonna tell you this, about 6 years ago, Frankie G, many of you know who he was, one of my trusted, associates, gets in touch with me and he says, Mike, guy just came out of prison. He was a former Colombo guy. He knows you. You knew him. He wants to talk to you. Very, very important. He's got to meet up with you. He did a lot of time in prison. His name was Pete. I'll leave it at that. I said, okay. Next time I come into New York, I'll sit with him. So I go into New York a couple of weeks later and I sit down with Peter. Now, he was a Colombo associate, no doubt about it. I did remember him, rather. He remembered me more. He was in my company a couple of times in clubs and so on and so forth. We had a lot of the same associates. But he says to me, Michael, I have a message for you. It's from somebody that you know, and he wanted me to deliver this specifically to you. He said, I've been trying to find you. I said, Pete, I'm very easy to find. I'm all over social media. You know people that know me. But he was an old-time guy. He wasn't technologically, adept, so he really didn't know. So he gets Frankie G, they get me, we sit down. And he says, Mike, this came from, maybe I'll name him afterwards, maybe I won't, a fella that I knew very well. He was an Irish guy. not Frank Sheehan. And he tells me that this guy wants me to know exactly what went down with the Hoffa killing because he was one of the shooters. Okay? I knew the source. He was a guy I knew and I liked. I thought he was credible. He's doing life. He had no reason to tell me this. But I said, tell me the story. So he tells me the whole story about this guy and how he was involved in the Hoffa murder. I said, let me ask you a question. Where's the body? That's what everybody wants to know. Where's the body? And he told me, he said, Michael, he was put in a 50-gallon drum, whatever it is, one of those big drums. It was cemented in it, and it was dropped in the river outside of Detroit. I said, okay. We ever going to be able to find this thing? He said, I don't know, but I can give you the approximate whereabouts. I said, okay. Now, this guy, Peter, was very sickly. I said, Peter, you got to do me a favor. I said, I can't go anywhere with this. So many people have claimed they knew about the Hoffa thing. Why did he come to me? He said, because, Michael, he knows that you're in the industry. He trusts you. If you get a story done on this, you make any money, you can take care of his family. I said, okay, fair enough. But there's not enough here for me to take this story forward. So I need a little bit more. I said, but anyway, Peter, you're sick. I don't know how long you're going to last. I told him straight out. I said, I need you to put this whole thing on tape, everything. It's okay. Puts the whole thing on tape. Yes, I have the tape. He gives it to me. Tells me the whole story. I now have to make a decision. I said, do I bring this forward? Do I make a few bucks on it? They don't pay a lot of money on these things, people. Do I make a few bucks? We do a documentary. But I really don't know where the body is. I know it's wet. I believe this guy. But I'm not going to be one of those guys that come with a story about Hoffa and then there's still no closure on it. We still don't find the body. I'm just not into doing that. Just another story unless you find the body. That's how I look at it. Someone hears about this with me. He's a producer. He comes to me. He says, Michael, we'll hire a diving expert to come and look for it if you give me the approximate vicinity. I said, I don't know if I can do that. I let him hear the tape. He said, we'll spend $1 million on this thing. I said, let me think about it. I made a decision there wasn't enough for me to go forward on this at that point in time. But I have the information. So I do believe this. I do believe this person is one of the shooters. I do believe and know for a fact that the order came out of New York, and I know who gave the order. I was around, I heard enough of it. It's just like the whole Kennedy assassination. Now, you know, he was killed in what, 1962 or 63. I was a kid. But I heard about it afterwards from so many people that were around. There's no doubt that the Kennedy assassination was a mob contracted hit. There's no doubt about it. The classified documents in the Kennedy case, in my opinion, will never be revealed because the government doesn't want people to know that a sitting president was able to be assassinated in a mob-related assassination. They just don't want people to know that. So I don't think those classified documents will ever be released because I think that's what it'll show. People don't want it. The government don't want people to know that. It's the same thing with Hoffa. I'm not going to give up this information. I'm not going to have a story made and then there's still no closure on it because I'm telling you right now, I don't know where the body is. A recent story came out and said that he's buried in some dump. And I think in New Jersey, I think it was, you know, and some guy has credible information. His father knew the body. It's buried like all the way deep. They're going to have to excavate the whole place in order to find it. Maybe it'll be there. I don't know. I don't think it will be because I believe my source is credible, but who knows? You know, I can't say, you know, specifically. So this is the kind of thing that's going on. And there's been more movies made about Hoffa, more documentaries made about Hoffa, no doubt. I think the 1992 version that we're going to talk about a little bit now with Jack Nicholson was one of the best. I mean, anything Nicholson does is great. Danny DeVito was terrific. And of course, my favorite guy, Armand Desante, he was in it, played a mob guy, killed the role like he did in Gotti. He's just brilliant. I mean, he can't do a bad movie. He just is that good. Let's talk about it a little bit. First of all, the whole Hoffa thing, it talks about how unions were born in this country. True, it opens up. Years ago, employers used to take advantage of employees. They didn't treat them right. And finally, we see in a scene that Hoffa is organizing some of the workers. There's battles over it. There's fight. They get physical, so on and so forth. But what unions were born out of the abuse that employees were taking from big corporations, big companies at that point in time. Hoffa was an outgoing guy. I think Jack Nicholson played him well. I didn't know the guy. I didn't really know his personality. I heard it. but I think Nicholson probably did his research and played him according to the way the character was talked about and depicted. And so as we go through the film, Hoffa starts to emerge as a guy that's a leader guy. Remember what I talked about in leadership. Leaders are leaders when people want to follow them. You could be a boss and not be a leader. You could be a boss and people have to listen to you because you became a boss, not because they want to. Leadership qualities in people, again, materialize, or you see them when people want to follow them. That's what makes a leader. You don't have to be a boss to be a leader. Hoffa was that type of guy. He said, I had enough with the abuse that we're taking from these companies, and he started to fight back, and he started to get people to rally around him. That's how unions were born in this country. Let me go from start to finish on this movie. The movie opens with Danny DeVito, who was a trusted associate, the right-hand guy of Hoffa, who played a brilliant role, by the way, and Danny DeVito did direct the movie. Brilliant job, but he played a brilliant role. Danny DeVito is a great actor. And Hoffa's got to have a meeting with somebody. He's sitting in the car. They're in an indoor cafe outside of Detroit, and they're waiting for this meeting to happen. Danny DeVito is inside. He's waiting for a phone call. Hoffa's in the car waiting, and they're waiting. That's how the movie opens up. Cut to the way the movie ends. May as well get right to it because everybody knows the ending of this movie. Hoffa disappears. So Danny DeVito is inside. Trucker comes in, a Teamster trucker comes in, and he's sitting at the counter with Danny DeVito. They start to have a conversation. The Teamster guy, the trucker, starts to talk to Danny, and Danny starts to tell him basically about Hoffa. And as a surprise to him, he said, if you want to meet Mr. Hoffa, come out. He's in the car. Turns out that this guy was the assassin. And he shoots not only Danny DeVito, but allegedly he shoots Jack Nicholson also, Jimmy Hoffa. Truck pulls up, they put Hoffa in the truck, the body disappears. That's the last anybody saw of Jimmy Hoffa. That was it. From that point on, it's a mystery. Nobody knows who was at that diner and pulled the trigger. Nobody knows. I told you about the information I got. I don't know if the guy that I'm talking about was actually in the diner and pulled the trigger, or he was part of the team. You know, a lot of times these hits, there's teamwork involved. There's more than one person involved. So I don't know the specifics of that, but that's the last anybody saw of Jimmy Hoffa. That's it. Now, we've had a lot of people come out and say he's buried in a backyard in a house in Detroit. We've heard a lot of different stories. Nobody's been able to find the body until this very moment. So as the film progresses, we see Hoffa gaining more and more power, more and more control. The Teamsters are born, and he becomes the Teamsters president. The Teamsters is one of the strongest. At one point, it was the strongest union in the country. There was some Teamsters and AFL-CIO locals that I had some influence on at the time. When you're in the mob, you do have union contacts. Obviously, the unions were a gigantic tool for us in both the contracting industry, politically, in many, many ways. We were able to use the unions for our benefit. That's a whole nother video. We're not going to get into that now. But Hoffa does enlist the aid of guys on the street, mob guys, to help him organize the unions, to help him fight the companies, fight these big corporations, and the Teamsters is born. At one point in time, the Teamsters had 2.5 million members. I don't know what the membership is today. They had 2.5 million members. At one time, remember this, you call a strike on the Teamsters, they call a strike, 2.5 million truck drivers stop driving trucks. You basically can close down the country in a big way when you control the Teamsters Union. Tremendous amount of money, tremendous amount of power. Jimmy Hoffa had a tremendous amount of power. The problem, as the movie shows, he gets on the bad side of one, Robert F. Kennedy. Now, I want to tell you this. Robert Kennedy was an enemy of the mob. He didn't like anything to do with the mob. One of the reasons, or the main reason, that John F. Kennedy got assassinated was because Robert Kennedy didn't play ball like he was supposed to. When the mob delivered Chicago votes to John F. Kennedy, Joe Kennedy was supposed to deliver the White House to the mob. He never did that. Robert Kennedy did just the opposite. When J. Edgar Hoover refused to investigate the mob, refused to even admit that the mafia existed, Robert F. Kennedy said, no, we're going after the mob. And that was the big problem. So basically, Joe Kennedy broke the deal, and that led to John F. Kennedy's demise. You could believe it, not believe it, I'm telling you what I know. So here we have Robert Kennedy, who believes that the Teamsters are all mobbed up, didn't like Hoffa's attitude, so he goes after him. And you see throughout the movie, Nicholson and Robert Kennedy, they're at odds. At some point in time, Hoffa does go down. He does get indicted. He does get a 10-year prison sentence. And obviously he has to resign as president of the union. Who takes over but this guy Fitzsimmons? And he was supposedly installed by Hoffa because he knew that he would keep that position until Hoffa got out of prison, and then Hoffa would take over. At least that's what the deal was supposed to be. There is a scene in there that I love because it involves Armand Assante, and people are going to say, Michael, all you talk about is Armand. Hey, I like him. He's great in these roles. He's now a friend, one of my favorite actors, so I talk about him. But there is a role there when Danny DeVito goes to see Armand, and he goes into a club, and the club owner kind of gets abusive with Danny DeVito, doesn't want him to see Armand and deliver the message from Hoffa. So he starts to get a little crazy with him, starts to abuse him. Danny DeVito pulls out a gun, puts it at the back of his head, and makes him walk him into the room where Armand is sitting, the mob guy. It's just a great scene. You know, Armand basically abuses the club owner, said, hey, it's a friend of mine, and you treat him this way? You know, it's just a great scene. He acknowledges Danny DeVito. He thanks him. He makes the club owner give him anything that he wants. They open up a bottle of champagne, the whole bit. Great scene that Armand is in. Then the movie progresses, and we see that when Hoffa gets out of prison, he wants to get back into power, and basically the mob guys don't want him there. They trust Fitzsimmons now. He's doing the right thing. He's more low-key than Hoffa was. They don't want the exposure. They don't want the media attention. They don't want the government coming after him anymore. So they tell Hoffa basically to back out. Hoffa don't want to do that. He says, my union, I founded it. But he didn't want to really acknowledge that he founded it with the help of the mob. And unfortunately, he got involved, and we know where the power is on the street. That's what led to Hoffa's demise. Now, I can go through this movie scene by scene, but you know what? It would be redundant. Everybody knows the story. You got to be living under a rock if you're at least in your 30s and you don't know the whole Hoffa story. You can see it anywhere. There's documentaries all over YouTube. This movie is all over YouTube. You can see scenes on it. It's great. But really, it's a great film. Still a mystery. Nobody knows what happened with Hoffa. Cut to the Irishman, does the whole thing. He solves the problem. Not really. A lot of nonsense. You know, it's funny. Every couple of years, somebody comes out with a book or something. I know where Jimmy Hoffa's buried. There was one guy, he was allegedly a mob guy, comes out with a book and he says, I know where Hoffa's buried. He puts it all in the book and he sends the FBI to a house in Detroit. They actually dig up the backyard of the house because that's where the body is. There was no body. But he sold a lot of books. It's a great scam, pulled a scam on the government. So anyhow, I'm not going to be one of those guys. But anyway, I recommend that you watch the movie. It was a good one. There are several about him. I think this was the best one. Jack Nicholson is terrific. And by the way, in The Irishman, I thought Al Pacino played a brilliant Hoffa. He was terrific. Matter of fact, he was my favorite guy in the movie. Him and Joe Pesci, who played Russ Buffalino, a guy that I knew fairly well. He wasn't really a boss, but maybe he was a boss, okay? I used to meet Russ a lot because when I first came into the life, my acting boss, Tom DeBella, and my captain at the time were very close with Russ Buffalino, and I used to drive them to meet with Russ. I had to sit there and keep my mouth shut because I was new in the life, but kind of liked him. And Joe Pesci played his role very, very well. He really did a good job. So I think that's it for today on this movie. Gave you what insight I can into the whole Hoffa deal. Watch the movie. It was a good one. You can get it just about anywhere now online. And that's it. So want to thank everybody. Our subscribers, we're up to over 625,000. Thank you very much. MichaelFranzese.com. The crew is growing. We're over at 19,000 right now, I believe. In our inner circle, we're up to about 1,000 people. We're having a bunch of things coming up. We're spending 2 days with my inner circle in California. A lot of surprises coming up. We're going to be on a yacht. You got to join the inner circle to have, you know, a weekend like this. It's going to be a lot of information given, a lot of products available. You're going to get a lot of me. We're going to have a party time, a learning time, a counseling time, an advisement time. You're going to enjoy it. I got a lot of good people coming to this. Got to be part of the inner circle to have that. We're going to do it a couple of times a year. My book, Mafia Democracy, it's just about done. You're going to be hearing about it soon. It'll be released towards the end of the year. And the movie, as I sit here today, they're deciding on the cast members for Michael and Sonny, my dad and me. And that announcement will come fairly soon. And then we got one other surprise. I'll be traveling to Vegas shortly to meet with some people. One other big project that we had that everybody's been asking about. I'm not going to tell you what it is right now. I can't, otherwise they'll kill me, so to speak. But you're going to enjoy it. It's coming out soon. So a lot of good things coming up. Stay tuned. A lot of people that we have. I'm not going to mention their names yet because we do this in kind of an order. So that's it for today. How do I always leave you? Be safe. Be healthy. God bless. And God willing, I'll see you next time.